Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fifth event in our series of Bristol 24/7 Presents, where today we're going to be focusing on sustainability and business. My name's Sophia, and I'm the editorial assistant at Bristol 24/7. So to give you an idea of what's coming up over the next hour and a half, we'll start by sharing a video from our business members and sustainability experts across Bristol. I'll then introduce our amazing panelists that we have today, and we'll go straight into our discussion, where there will be an opportunity for you to all send in questions via our chat box around the subject at hand. So first up, let's have our Better Business video, where we hear from Better Business members and businesses across the city on their thoughts around sustainability and its importance in Bristol.
Hello, my name is Alia Herman. I'm the Sustainability Manager at Neighbourly. The steps we're taking to become a more sustainable organisation is ensuring that it's completely embedded across the organisation by expanding our reporting capabilities. We also made a net zero pledge and currently are in the process of baselining, target setting and developing our roadmap to align with the net zero trajectory. We also have sustainability champions across the whole business who help steer sustainability initiatives within the various business areas. The main barriers that businesses face when trying to become more sustainable tend to be silos and viewing sustainability in isolation. It also tends to be that people don't have enough data on performance and how to mitigate the challenges they face. And it's also because a lot of organisations are unsure where to start. The benefit of being a sustainable organisation are that it can be more cost effective and optimise performance. It can also help your competitive advantage. And as we've seen with the increase in ESG, a lot of investment criteria are now ESG based, and therefore by being a sustainable organisation reporting against it, you are future-proofing your business, making it more resilient, but also attracting more investment to your organisation.
So Future Leap has carried out various different steps to become more sustainable, particularly within the Future Leap hub on the Gloucester Road. We made a commitment to be net zero by 2020. We achieved against that target, and we retrofitted the building to ensure that sustainability was a primary focus throughout the retrofit. In terms of barriers that businesses may experience in becoming more sustainable, we tend to find that knowledge and the networks to achieve sustainability are very often lacking for businesses. That's what we're hearing anecdotally. And by joining the Future Leap Business Network, we can support with that. We can also support with helping find finance and grant funding. We're in a climate emergency. We know we need to take immediate, rapid and large-scale changes. All businesses need to get on board with that. And as Mark Carney's quoted saying, companies that don't adapt will go bankrupt without question. There's also a reputational risk if we're not going to take sustainability seriously. But really importantly, it also feels good to be part of a sustainable business.
Hi, I'm Vicky Lee and I'm head of the City Centre Business Improvement District. Now, everything we do considers the environment. We run a number of projects and initiatives that support businesses to reduce their impact on the environment. Our waste and recycling project opens opportunities for businesses to increase their recycling rates whilst also reducing vehicle movements of refuse trucks across the city. Our cleansing milk float is 100% electric, and this year's Bristol Light Festival will be introducing a whole new element to the programme, which will be artworks which are green, sustainable energy pieces, and the festival itself will be running completely off mains power.
At Inside Travel Group, we do many things to become more sustainable, like using 100% renewable energy, choosing local eco-friendly suppliers, and reducing our waste as much as possible. But we found that isn't enough. That's why in 2020 we made a climate commitment to measure and reduce our carbon emissions and to offset the emissions we cannot reduce. I think the main barrier to becoming a more sustainable business is knowing where to start. That's why we work with like-minded companies such as Climate Care, who give us the expertise to guide us on our sustainability journey. Focusing on sustainability adds huge value to our business. It helps recruit staff who have similar values to us. It sets us apart from our competitors. But fundamentally, we do it because it's the right thing to do and because it makes us proud to work for Inside Travel Group.
Hi, I'm Jenny Foster at the Global Goals Centre. What steps are we taking to become more sustainable? Well, sustainability is at the heart of all we do, and we're actually all home-based, but we've committed to only travel sustainably to get to meetings, and we've also tried to reduce our carbon footprint through our emails and storage, so we're really minimising all of that, and also reusing as much as we can in workshops and installations. What are the main barriers for companies in achieving sustainability? Well, I think the problem comes when sustainability is just seen as an add-on or done by one person rather than being integrated in the whole way that a business operates and that everybody is actually on board with it. And that's what's good about using the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework, because there's something in there that everyone can be passionate about, and all of that leads to sustainability, be that economic, environmental or social. And so that's a really good starting point for companies to really make sustainability a part of everything that they do and be at the heart of their operations. I think sometimes it's seen as too expensive, and that's a barrier, and there are some things that are expensive, but there's also a lot of initiatives that can be taken that either save money short term or over the longer term. You can be creative and imaginative in finding those solutions. In terms of staff engagement and staff retention, we've seen so much that a sustainable business is much better at encouraging and inspiring their staff, and they're much more likely to stay. And also in terms of customers, because customers more and more are looking for a sustainable company, as well as the feel-good factor that you get as a business in terms of your contribution that you're making to people and planet. So there's huge amounts of added value that can happen by being more sustainable.
Hi, I'm Olivia and I'm one of the Black and Green ambassadors from the year 2020 to 2021. We put the impact we have on people and planet at the core of all the decisions we make as an organisation. We aim to create spaces, lead conversations and influence action in which all people and ideas are valued and included. We explore the links between climate change and social injustice, so that the future we build together is not only green, but also fair and just. I think the main barriers that businesses face in order to be sustainable and ideally regenerative is this feeling of being overwhelmed with all the decisions and actions that need to be taken in a really short space of time if we're going to succeed. And then there's a sense of fear that the wrong action might be taken and you'll be misjudged for that. There is no business without sustainability, may that be financial, social or environmental. The value that sustainability adds is a necessity. If we don't act now, there's going to be no planet, no resources to create our products and have our businesses. So we've got to act now and do something. If we do this, that means business can be in a thriving planet and in a thriving community.
We're really excited to have achieved our B Corp certification this month. This demonstrates how seriously we at Purple Fish take our commitment to being a sustainable and ethical business. We have company targets for energy and water, a commitment to only making sustainable office purchases while also educating the team on how they can individually contribute to our company-wide goals.
Companies can sometimes create barriers by thinking too short term when it comes to targets and budgets. It is important to take a long-term and holistic view. Fostering sustainability isn't a simple bolt-on strategy. It needs to be embedded into the company culture and behaviour with responsibility at all levels.
Sustainability can provide a foundation for a more efficient operation while also driving innovation. Redesigning a method of working or a product to meet sustainable needs can drive new business opportunities. There is a growing interest from consumers to shop and seek services from sustainable companies. Our B Corp accreditation status is a testament of the value we see in running an ethical, sustainable business.
To become more sustainable as a business, Urban Creation has recently become carbon neutral for Scope 1 and 2 of the business. We also have enrolled in an employee offset scheme whereby we plant a certain amount of trees per month to offset all of our employees' emissions in both work and home. We also regularly exceed the Bristol City Council's 20% renewable energy bill on all of our developments, and where possible we try to work with other suppliers that are also trying to be more sustainable. The main barriers for businesses in achieving sustainability, the biggest one's probably going to be cost. There's obviously a cost for enrolling in these offset schemes, and also there's more cost for more of the scopes that you want to offset. It also can be quite difficult to manage Scope 3 because that relates to the indirect emissions that occur in a company's value chain, and therefore some of those emissions are not directly from you, the company, but do still affect the way that you run your business. And adding value to a business. More and more consumers are wanting to work with brands that are being more sustainable. So the fact that it elevates your brand, it will in turn drive customers to you, which you can't really put a price on. I do believe soon enough that it won't be something that is seen as an added value, but merely something that's expected of all businesses, and everyone will just by default become more sustainable.
Hi, I'm Sarah Powell and I work at Our Media, which is a specialist interest business producing content for print, video and online communities. What steps are we taking in our organisation to become more sustainable? Well, we've set ourselves a goal of carbon net zero by 2030. And to achieve this, we've come up with a framework based around our 5R strategy, which are responsibility, research, reduction, recycling, and reporting. Our main focus for this year is to understand our carbon footprint and what actions we can take to reduce our emissions. I think the main barriers for us to achieve sustainability really fall around managing our scope 3 emissions. This is a huge challenge for us because we're heavily reliant on our suppliers who are heavy users of energy. So with the lack of access to renewable energy, we feel this is going to be tricky to manage. At Our Media, sustainability is really important to our business and to our people who work here, but also to the brand communities that we work so closely with. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back. We'd like to take the opportunity to thank our public and business members for supporting independent journalism in Bristol, and to TLT for supporting Bristol 24/7 to host this event. We couldn't do this without your support. So you can learn more about being a better business or public member and how your organisation can find out more with information underneath the video player. Alternatively, you can head to bristol247.com/join us to help us increase our memberships to a total of 1,000, where you can also get access to various perks across Bristol. So welcome to all of our panelists. I'll introduce you shortly, but first up, let's talk about the fact of our previous event, which looked at Bristol's journey towards becoming net zero. It was really popular, it did really well. So the focus of today's event is going to be looking specifically at the actionable steps that businesses can take to become more sustainable. So according to research, 2021 was the 5th hottest year on record. Despite its more prominent agenda in Bristol, climate change continues to be intensifying across the world, leading to permanent damage to ecosystem, homes, and our health. Integrating sustainability into business models is increasingly important for consumers and will lead to many benefits. However, for maybe smaller or local businesses, it can feel quite abstract as a concept, and taking concrete steps to achieve this can be overwhelming or difficult. So today we're very pleased to be joined by our 4 experts on the screen who will share actionable advice and steps for the business, for businesses across Bristol that want to become more sustainable. Again, if you have any questions that you'd like to put forward to a panelist today, then you can enter them in the chat box and I'll raise them during the discussion. Just before we get going, I'd also like to apologise for the lack of subtitles for our live event today, but we will be uploading the full recording of the event with captions that will be available on our YouTube and website later this afternoon. Now, hello everybody, thank you for joining us today. I'm very pleased to introduce all of our panel. We have Maria Connolly from TLT. Hello, Maria. Maria's has over 20 years of experience in the clean energy sector and has acted on several hundred wind, solar, biomass, hydro, EV and energy storage projects. She's also the head of real estate at TLT, the law firm, and leads the cross-discipline clean energy team, which provides innovative legal solutions across the UK. We also have Pamela Barbato from Actionnet Zero. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Pam is passionate about accelerating change through collaboration, behavioural science, engagement and technology. So Pam set up Actionnet Zero in 2020 with a vision of demonstrating the positive impacts of embracing sustainability, supporting communities to prosper. We also have Lizzie Testani from Bristol Green Capital. Hello, Lizzie. Lizzie is the Chief Operating Officer at Bristol Green Capital Partnership, which is a network of businesses and organisations across Bristol and the region to collaborate for a fairer and more sustainable city. Bristol Green Capital Partnership's Climate Action Programme engages local businesses in action to reduce carbon emissions. And also, last but not least, we've got Sarah Ives from YTKO. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
So Sarah is the project director at YTKO, which offers startup and growth support for businesses, charities, social enterprises, CICs, and those who are self-employed across Bristol. Equality and sustainability is a fundamental part of Sarah's work, and she's built a wealth of experience in understanding strategies for business, for successful business sustainability. It's really exciting that we've got these 4 experts with us here today to learn more about how businesses can adopt more sustainable practices. And final reminder that if you'd like to ask any questions, you can do in the chat box and I'll get back to them later. So I think we're going to start off with a question to all of our panelists, just so we get a better understanding of the context from your background and expertise. Where is Bristol currently in terms of sustainability and making progress amid the climate crisis? Maria, I might go to you first.
Thank you, Safia. I think Bristol is still one of the cities who are leading the way in relation to sustainability, but that's not to be complacent because there's still so much to do if Bristol's to meet its 2030 targets. But I think in fairness, it has been forward thinking in terms of some of the innovative projects, some of the steps it's taking, and just its understanding of what the journey needs to look like in order to take some meaningful action. Plenty more to do then. I'm sure we'll come on to sort of collaboration and working together to really drive it forward. But when we compare Bristol to perhaps some other cities, I think it's a really good story, but we'd like to build on that and accelerate the progress.
Thank you. Pam, what do you reckon? Where is Bristol currently in terms of sustainability?
Yes, to echo much of Maria's comments, but yeah, we know Bristol is very leading, and in terms of where it is at the moment, it's got some fantastic initiatives, not least things like Bristol City Leap contract that obviously is going to take it to net zero, the infrastructure by 2030. And I think most importantly, we know that there's a plethora of really innovative tech-led collaborative partnerships that exist, not least the Green Capital Partnership, Future Leap, and that actually I think is quite unique from a city perspective, and one that is set to enable a lot of change to happen. But to echo Maria's point, we know this is the decade and actually almost the year where we need to really ensure that people are acting to meet the targets of that 60% reduction from both individuals and from businesses that we know has to happen and has to happen quickly.
Lizzie, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I agree with much of what's been said. We are on the journey, but there's still a massive amount to do if we're to achieve the scale of change that's laid out in the One City Climate Strategy, which is the plan to get Bristol to net zero by 2030. Some of the issues are incredibly complex, which is why they take a long time and a lot of foundational work, such as heat, decarbonisation and transport. Pam mentioned City Leap. I think we're going to see a huge amount of changes in the coming year. The clean air zone, which is predominantly to tackle air quality, but will have changes relating to transport and City Leap. And in Bedminster, where I live, the streets are already being dug up to lay the foundations for a district heat network, which is one of the kind of infrastructure things that we need to get to a lower carbon way of heating homes. We also have so much exciting activity taking place within communities. Bristol Green Capital have been working with 6 community partners and they're planning how they want to respond and the type of enterprising things that they want to do to capture the benefits of making changes and bring quality of life improvements and local economy benefits to their areas. And we have, what one signal of hope for me is usually the 30 businesses that we have signed up as part of our climate leaders group who've got a stated aim to become carbon neutral and are working together to kind of report on their progress and share learnings to make sure that we can do this all quickly. But this whole transition needs to take a very conscious effort if we are to ensure that it's as fair as it is fast. And that's kind of one of the things we try to bring into our work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sarah, would you agree with the thoughts everyone's raised?
Yeah, absolutely agree with fellow panelists here. I think in terms of 2030 targets, we're after a brilliant start, and working with businesses and pre-start businesses on a daily basis can see there's a real appetite for all of this and achieving this, which is fantastic to see. But it is an ambitious target, but one that we can achieve with a massive collaborative effort.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in good stead, and things are looking good. But as I mentioned in the introduction, last year was the 5th hottest year on record, which isn't so promising. So just quickly, I want to go through everyone again. Are you feeling positive about the situation we're in? Maria, you can start again.
Yes, I think we should all be positive about what we need to do and how we're going to get there. And I think positivity is quite key, actually, to getting everybody engaged and focused. So, I don't think it's are we going to get there? It's about how we're going to get there. So if there's a sort of call for action here, it's we haven't got any more time to wait. You've made the point there around, we are already in this sort of situation. It's about taking action now and having a very clear strategy about how we do get there, and everybody playing their part.
Yeah, Pam, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Positivity, I think, is critical. We know that it's challenging, of course it is, but actually, as we've already all said, it's time to act now. And I think for both businesses and individuals, it's actually critical. It's critical to being able to ride the challenges that we know exist, whether that's energy turbulence and pricing, or whether that's actually just being future fit as a business. So the opportunities, I think, outweigh from a business and from an individual. It's about embracing change. And that's when I think that the collaborative and the partnership approach that we see on the ground in Bristol and other areas is testament to the fact that there is so much positivity. And I think we should hold on to that, but really continue to engender that, we have the financing structures available now. We have the regulation that's coming, so the policy that's coming, and we have the innovation and the tech. And as we've all said, the collaborative partnerships piece, I think, will enable us to really drive that change, and that's critical.
Yeah, thank you. Lizzie, what do you think?
Building on what Pam said about the change, I think I feel really excited about the potential for quality of life changes that come with this, and our communities can potentially become healthier and more connected with one another, and we have the potential to achieve greater equality in the city. So let's get used to change, let's embrace it and not try and avoid it. From a gender quality point of view, it was great to hear from all the amazing women working on the issue in the video that opened, and thinking of my fellow panelists, we do have different voices coming through with the low carbon transition and the zero carbon transition, and I'd like to say that Bristol is a great place to be addressing this challenge within. Every week a new business is announcing its intentions to become carbon neutral, and we have an incredible social enterprise scene who are proactively reducing emissions. So one message to businesses is also to use your buying influence and look at your suppliers and see whether these social enterprises can be incorporated, because supporting them will have immediate wider benefits, along with the kind of longer, decade-long idea of reducing the carbon emissions.
Yeah, thank you. And finishing off, Sarah.
Yeah, so completely agree with this theme that we've come up with of positivity and embracing this change, but also looking at how the positives outweigh the negatives here, like Pam had just addressed, and then looking at the challenges that we do face and changing perceptions towards sustainability and climate change too. So doing this through education and access to information that is absolutely critical and something that we need to see. So there is a lot of this around the city, and Bristol really is leading the way, which is fantastic to see. But I just think the way forward now is with more education and continued support and accessing people and communities and businesses that aren't quite yet ready or don't fully understand what's happening perhaps, and making sure that they do and they are ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the government, that's become clear, is a major player in the fight against climate change. I wanted to ask, what responsibility do businesses have in achieving sustainability, and also maybe touching on about how maybe smaller businesses, what their responsibility is if they're not having so much of an output when it comes to carbon emissions. Again, this one's to everyone. Pam, I might go to you first.
Thank you. So I readily quote 60% of reduction is required in terms of carbon emissions, and that directly has, over the next 15 years, that has to come from SMEs, small to medium enterprise and below, and also from individuals. At Actionnet Zero, we've recently done a survey, over 2,000 respondents, we do it every year, and one of the key outtakes though is that there is still a mainstay thought that the responsibility lies with government and also with large corporates. And I think this is the critical issue, that we actually need to really start to support those businesses, as we're doing, you know, by having these types of conversations, to get them to understand that there are really great opportunities for them to embrace sustainability, to actually improve their businesses, and also on an individual level to be able to, as we said, save costs, help air pollution. There's multiple obviously benefits. So actually that responsibility is for everybody, and it's about, as we've already identified, working together and making sure that those reductions are possible. Also from a corporate perspective, they're very reliant on their supply chain. So of course, those corporates being able to support their supply chain, which might often be a small to medium-sized kind of business, is also incredibly important, that they can reach their own targets. So again, it's the connectedness that I think is important, understanding that everyone has a responsibility.
Yeah. Same question to you, please, Lizzie. What do you think?
I have a lot of empathy for businesses that are feeling that way, considering the changes that you know, the last couple of years that we've had and the pressures that the pandemic's brought. But I still believe, and we at Bristol Green Capital Partnership believe, that tackling the climate and ecological emergency is the single most important thing that each organisation can do, because, as Olivia said in the opening, it improves the chances of the business, our city and our communities existing and thriving in the future. And in the shorter term, adapting to a net zero future will be essential to the sustainability of the business, to attract talent, to attract investment. So actually, it's a really sensible business move, but I understand why it can sometimes feel like a lot for a small business to take on, which is partly why we've been working really hard with that network and drawing on the expertise of the network to make resources freely available to kind of help people take the first step and work out what they can do within the scope of their potential areas of action.
Yeah. Sarah, what about you, especially working for a smaller business?
Yeah, so completely agree with what Lizzie has just said here, and it's brilliant to see so many small medium enterprises, SMEs, leading the way here and making these changes. And actually what we are seeing with a lot of SMEs is now implementing a sustainable strategy within an existing business model. So what I think is really important for people with an idea for business and those future entrepreneurs, sole traders and self-employed, we are really seeing an increase in them actually putting sustainability at the heart of their business plan, which is fantastic, and it's absolutely essential to drive this forward, not only for their industry but for the Bristol city and the UK as a whole. So we are seeing a bigger demand in this, and through our support and other support from fellow panelists and other organisations across Bristol, people are getting the resources that they need to make sure they implement this. So whereas sustainability may have once upon a time been a bit of a privilege, seen as an expense and inconvenience, people are now embracing it and seeing as actually this holds a lot of business benefits for me, from looking at increased consumers and looking at consumer choice to more ethical businesses and decisions. They're really embracing this and realizing the high potential. So I think starting with pre-stars and SMEs as well, we're in a really good position here.
Absolutely. And Maria, why does TLT feel like they have responsibility in sustainability?
Sure. You mentioned in your opening comment that there's quite a lot of government regulation around this. I think it's more than that. It's about doing the right thing. The government regulation at the moment around sort of carbon reporting and disclosures is absolutely aimed at sort of larger corporates and organisations. As Pam said, this is absolutely, if we focus on the SME sort of market, we could make a huge difference. Not because they're obliged to do so at the minute, although I do think that is the direction that government are going into, but it's about doing the right thing. Why are we doing it? We're passionate as a firm around sustainability. This is a board-led strategy. It is central to what we're about, and it informs our decision making. I think increasingly, as was mentioned, it's really important to our employees and attracting and retaining our best talent. People want to be working for, forward-thinking, innovative, sustainable organisations that are living and breathing that social value piece, whether it's sustainability, diversity, that focus on mental health and well-being. And I think increasingly, all of those agendas go together, and we should look at sort of sustainability in that wider social value context. Clients are expecting it, and that's absolutely right. You get a seat at the table to put in a proposal because they know that you can do the job. But what are they looking for? Again, sustainability. How are you leading the way there? Innovation, that mental health and well-being, that diversity piece. So it is not a choice anymore. It's something that organisations absolutely need to be doing, but for the right reason. It doesn't have to happen all at once, and it's a complex picture, as we'll come on to, in terms of establishing your baseline and understanding your emissions. But having that strategy and focus, because it's the right thing to do, I think is really important.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next question, we've had one come in around this conversation of SMEs from Camilla Smith, who asked if any of you have had any involvement with the SME Climate Hub, and would you recommend it? So I don't know if anyone wants to answer the question. The SME Climate Hub. No, okay, looks like not, but that's something that we can all look into, I guess. So before moving on to some more specific action points that businesses can carry out, I'd like to ask one more broader question. How can, and it has been covered a little bit, but how can adopting green practices be beneficial to businesses? So one example I found is that a new green calculator from O2 found that companies with 1,000 employees can make annual savings of £2.6 million if they invest in green technologies, which is huge. Sarah, how has having a sustainable approach benefited YTKO as a company?
So going back to just increased markets here, so increasing the amount of business that you can bring into your business itself. So looking at what your clients and your suppliers are expecting, and just making sure that that is a fundamental part of your business, and you're able to deliver that. And align with their own beliefs as well. So that's something that we're doing. We're teaching pre-starts and SMEs to do the same, and it's brilliant because, as we've already addressed, it is an expectation, and people are looking for this now as well. So if you don't adapt it yourself, you're going to inevitably lose out to other people who have adopted it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maria, with TLT, same question, I guess, kind of selfishly as a business, what benefits are you seeing?
Yeah, it comes back to that engagement. So internal engagement, people are really passionate about the agenda. We touched on the education piece earlier. People want to understand more around how they can make a difference. And then it's about really driving forward that collaboration, with the likes of everybody on this call, with clients, with other stakeholders. And I think if we can sort of collaborate our efforts, one, it does raise awareness, but it also really helps to accelerate the agenda. It's that sort of one powerful voice, and everybody moving in the right direction. But yeah, engagement, collaboration, and people want to be doing it. So all good.
And Pam and Lizzie, I guess you work with businesses. How would you encourage them? By what benefits would you say would they be able to gain should they adopt more sustainable practices? Lizzie, we can go to you first.
Along with what's already been said, I think attracting talent, and particularly the younger generation and young people, is an enormous reason if you want your business to exist in 5 or 10 years' time. Attract investors, and last but very much not least, be on the right side of history.
Absolutely. And Lizzie, what about you? Oh no, sorry, Pam, you're next.
Yes, to echo, I think we see it day in, day out. There's a massive skills shortage currently, so therefore the market is vying for talent to gain competitive advantage at any organisation at all. I think it's about being able to speak through the lens of sustainability, because that will attract the right talent. So I think that's hugely valuable to organisations. Of course, around being able to elevate their own reputation from a sustainability perspective, which adds credibility, not least in terms of procurement, but again across the board about reputation and it's a very competitive market, whichever area you're in. I think the other key area for me is, we talk about this thing of future fit, but actually this is the point. Regulation is going to change. There are going to be some very different regulations coming down the line, not least taxations, disclosures, and actually this is about preparing for that. So we've already talked about the immediacy and the fact that it needs to be deep cuts in emissions straight away. So whatever anyone can do to do that, they're actually pre-planning ahead of that regulatory piece, which we know is going to come. So I think, the summary of it is it's imperative that organisations put it at the heart of their organisation to be able to manage the complexity moving forward.
Absolutely. And I might go to you again, Pamela. So can you tell us a little bit more about the work that Actionnet Zero does with businesses in Bristol? And then are there any examples of, really successful sustainability actions that you've seen carried out?
Yes, of course. So Actionnet Zero, our whole purpose is about helping to support the acceleration of sustainable switches. And like all the other panelists, our mission ultimately is to be able to provide that support to both businesses, but also for us, it's about reaching out into residents as well. So it's kind of taking that mainstream approach. And the way that we do that is knowing that if we can support it, saves those organisations and individuals time, because we've already identified it's hugely complex. How do we actually start breaking down barriers, making it easy and connecting things together for solutions? So we're all about trying to make things easy and affordable for both businesses and individuals, as I said. So that's kind of our whole purpose. In terms of actually, top tips, I think probably everybody on the panel will agree one of the most important things that any organisation can do is actually understand where they are in terms of their carbon output. And I know I'll let Lizzie talk about some of the work that the Green Capital Partnership are doing in terms of managing that from a planning perspective, but actually measuring your carbon footprint. Because by understanding where those negative impacts are, so where your highest carbon emissions are, you're clearly then going to be able to plan, and planning is critical. So that's one thing. But on tactical levels, there's many things that can be done straight away. We know that. So everything from reviewing your energy supply. Is it really green? And by that, is it renewable and deep green? So really understanding where your energy is coming from. But secondly, understanding how you use that energy, because it's critical that energy is used at a time that renewable energy is at its highest. So again, there's a whole load of complexity around how you do that, but that's about tapping into the renewable sources at the right time of the day. So simplistically, machinery being on overnight wherever possible, or if you've got an electric car or even an electric bike, charging it at night, washing machines being on at night, where we know that the national grid is able to deliver renewable energy. But then in terms of engagement, it's everything from looking at sourcing locally through to being able to support local producers, providers, of course, understanding employees, who's championing the green initiatives and being able to build a culture around that, as well as looking at how you can start to talk to your suppliers about what they're doing and understanding how you can start to influence them by saying, what are you doing to reduce your waste, and actually having those conversations with them now to be able to understand that every aspect of your carbon emission, whether that's people, organisations coming into you, to your own emissions, to obviously then emissions moving forward to scopes 1 and 2 if we're getting complex, actually where those impacts are. So it's all about the planning piece, I would suggest at the moment, and the light touches, making sure waste is reduced, food is reduced, is seeing things through a sustainability lens, right through to, as we said, the social impacts of supporting your community, aligning with the SDGs. So there's a myriad of really great tangible things that can be done today, tomorrow, next week, as well as, of course, in coming years.
Thank you. And Lizzie, what about Green Capital Partnership? Can you tell the audience a bit more about your work and, again, any positive examples you've seen in Bristol?
Yes, so Bristol Green Capital Partnership is a network of over 1,000 member organisations working together to respond to the climate and ecological emergency. We have projects focused on supporting Bristol's communities to plan climate action and bring quality of life and local economy benefits, and also to amplify existing leaders within the citywide environmental conversation. But our climate action programme, which is this logo here, is supported by NatWest and Bristol City Council and is open to all businesses and organisations in the city for free, and it aims to enable collaboration and create motivation among whoever's taking part to reduce their organisational carbon emissions. We found that it's quite hard for businesses, particularly small and dynamic ones, to know where to start, including ours, including Bristol Green Capital Partnership, when the purpose of an organisation is not inherently environmental too. It can be a challenge. The pandemic has further limited bandwidth, as I mentioned earlier, for organisations to take on what might feel like extra stuff. The Climate Action Programme is for the members and people taking part to respond to their priorities and challenges, generate specific solutions that work locally here in Bristol, and participants have focused on topics previously, such as measuring carbon emissions. Pam mentioned that's a really great priority and place to start, including scope 3 or embodied carbon from things that we consume or buy. Creating an action plan, transforming travel at your organisation, engaging employees in climate and nature action, and reducing your digital carbon footprint, which is often something that goes pretty unnoticed, but actually there's loads of stuff that you can do really quickly, including deleting files that you don't need. Whoever does that, because there's no time. As part of the Climate Action Programme, we make sure that each of the kind of events or times that we meet and discuss things generate resources that are stored on our website, available for free. And they've been informed by experts such as Gary McGovern, author of Worldwide Waste, Jessica Ferro and Livy Drake, local sustainability consultants, Anne O'Driscoll, who specialises in sustainable travel, and Natalie Francis from McDonald, just to name a few of the people that are supporting to create these resources. And they can be accessed at any time for organisations to get involved, and they're available on our website. And one of my colleagues mentioned she is going to share in the chat a few of these, so look out for them.
Perfect, thank you. So Maria, as a large company, TLT has plans to become net zero by, I think, 2025, which is 5 years ahead of what Bristol is planning to do. What's an example of a way that TLT is achieving this?
Sure, and it's a nice follow-on from the discussion just now around establishing your baseline. So we have been through that exercise, and we used some external consultants, Carbon Intelligence, just to work with us, because it involves quite a lot of data and technical input in order to establish that baseline. So that is absolutely key. But I guess what is quite interesting and worth getting into in another session, the detail of sort of scope 1, 2 and 3. For a professional services organisation like us, 95% of our carbon footprint sits within scope 3. So the point was made earlier around, absolutely, let's do everything within our control. But if we're going to make the biggest difference, in addition to that, not instead, but in addition to that, it's about really putting pressure on your supply chain through procurement processes. And that's how we think we'll get to Pam's 60% reduction quicker than we would otherwise. So what I would say to sort of SMEs and organisations is, absolutely, get your sort of assessments done, understand your scope 1, 2 and 3. I would expect, depending upon the nature of your organisation, you are going to have quite a big scope 3 aspect to this, and put pressure on your supply chain to live and breathe your same values, so that then sort of flows through. So there's that. It's then the decarbonisation strategy. So once you've got your baseline, what are you going to do to decarbonise your organisation, and some great things that can be done in relation to all of that, how you travel and everything else. So plenty that can be done. We've introduced, I think, one of the first law firms to do so, actually, an electric car scheme. It's not only about sort of travelling by car, of course, so incentivising bike to work and all those other sort of ways of sustainable transport, but these are the things that organisations can absolutely starting to do to think about their own journey.
Yeah, and something that I'm not sure that you did mention, but last year, you also adopted a fully flexible work approach. How does that make significant impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So we we are absolutely promoting our fully flexible return to work, which means says what it does what it says on the tin. People can absolutely be in the office if they want to, and we're trying to create a purpose, because I think offices do have a really key role in terms of bringing people together and hubs and everything else. But we are absolutely looking at sort of the carbon footprint in terms of that sort of flexible sort of working regime. Now, the point has been made, though, and this is often an unknown, your IT, every Teams or Zoom call you have actually have quite an impact on carbon footprint. So working from home doesn't eliminate it, you just look at it in a slightly different way. But it does have, we all saw the massive benefits through not travelling, as a sort of UK PLC through the pandemic. It's about how we can be creative in our working patterns to accelerate the agenda. And I think that the flexibility, the flexibility will certainly sort of contribute towards that.
Yeah, great, thank you. And Sarah, can you tell me more about YTKO's approach to sustainability? So what are some impactful changes that you've made in the past year, and what are some examples that could be easily adopted by any other business?
Yeah, so I think learning from the pandemic, obviously the impact that this has had, and taking the time to do a bit of an internal audit in the company and looking at what have we been doing in the past that doesn't really fit into this this new normal that we are now in. So looking at the flexibility and being flexible as well, and then the impact this has on recruitment, retaining staff, bringing new people into the company and adapting to different people's needs. So that's had a huge impact. We are a nationwide company, so looking at travel as well. So yes, Zoom and online and phone calls has been fantastic. But as Maria said as well, just looking at the impact that this is actually having as an organisation and our digital footprint as well. So I think doing an internal audit on your sustainable values, what you could do better and where you want to be, is a really strong piece of advice here. And I think looking at all of this in small incremental changes. So if you were going to take any piece of advice from any of us and what we've implemented in our businesses, and thinking, it's not really accessible to the stage that you're at in your business at the moment, that's absolutely fine, but just look at what you could do now and then lead up to do later on. So for example, cycle to work schemes and things like this, but then just looking at your energy or home consumption, home energy consumption in your home or office, and then looking at how you can reduce this and so on. So it's those small things that can make a big impact in the long term.
Absolutely. So again, the point of this call is to really be focusing on actionable steps. Pam, on the Actionnet Zero website, you've got some really clear guides and tools to help businesses cut carbon emissions. Can you explain in a bit more detail the tips that you suggest, and also, if anyone was interested, how businesses would be able to partner with you?
Yes, of course. So a little bit. Actionnet Zero is supported by corporate partnerships, and delighted to say TLT are one of our partners as an example. So we focus, the reason we have this model is because we want to work with subject matter experts around key areas of decarbonisation. So a key focus for us, given there's policy in place, is decarbonisation of transport. We know that is a very large part of the carbon footprint. So as an example, we bring together subject matter experts that then allow us to be able to provide the guidance. So simply speaking, we've talked about the importance of decarbonising transport, whether that's cycle to work schemes, whether that's actually initiating things like salary sacrifice, where you're actually allowing your employees to lease electric vehicles, and there's lots of incentives for them to do so at the moment through the government, which means that it's much more cost effective. And given the pricing that we know that we're all seeing in the marketplace for petrol and diesel, suddenly the cost ratio becomes quite attractive when you're looking at these things. So for us, it's actually, in terms of that transportation piece and what we can do and how we're working, is very much about being able to tap into all aspects of decarbonising transport, as an example. So from chargers, vouchers, to the salary sacrifice schemes, to engaging with employees, because they touch all of these scopes 1, 2 and 3 that we're talking about, and they then connectedly they make an awful lot of sense. So for us at Actionnet Zero, it is absolutely about partnering with both the subject matter experts. So you mentioned how can people get involved. We are always keen to hear and speak to potential partners like the TLTs, where actually this is about them getting involved in being able to support those supply chains, so that there's absolutely a win-win. It's about being able to say to them, by virtue of being involved with Actionnet Zero, you're able to support some of your supply chains to be able to support them to decarbonise. So that obviously makes sense. And then on the other side, we do offer consultation, free consultation for businesses to start them on that route. And the reason for doing that again is that there's so much complexity around that. So actually being able to just nurture and have those one-to-one conversations with businesses is a highly effective way of getting them to start to think about sustainability and how they can embed that in their process. So those are two key ways. I think we've shared with yourselves about the top tips and the guides that are on the site. And as we touched on, they include a lot of the things we've talked about. Digital footprint, critical, but also things like volunteering and getting out into the community and supporting cleanups. So much of it we've talked about today, but it's everything from decarbonisation of transport, built environment, so that's all around use of energy. So the biggest opportunity that we have is all to consider how much consumption, and that's really complex. That's about data and understanding where businesses are using the most energy and how they can be more efficient. So we work with partners that specialise in that area in particular, being able to actually, it seems quite ironic, doesn't it, that they are supporting the reduction in energy, so to reduce your energy costs by being hugely efficient and adopting the right tech at the right time. So I'd say that's another key area for organisations to really think about, because there's a win-win. They're not only reducing, they're reducing their costs and also the carbon footprint at the same time.
Perfect, thank you. And another question for everyone, and you've all been raising really great actions that would be helpful takeaways, I'm sure, for our audience. But I'd like to, emphasize that there are short-term actions that people can carry out immediately, and then there's longer-term plans that businesses can carry out. What's the importance of focusing on both equally, and maybe an example of each? Lizzie, if you wouldn't mind going first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the reasons that it's important to do both is because it's an acknowledgement within your business that this is an emergency and you're preparing for the huge change to come. Pam referred to the inevitable policy response that will, it might be that the governments of our globe are taking a while, but if that comes, it's going to be pretty consuming. So preparing now in any way that you can in terms of long-term planning and short-term planning is really useful. Some of the just like with the climate leaders group and the climate action program, there's often these kind of unique light bulb moments that happen where a business or organization will share something that they were struggling with potentially on their own and actually can refer to others. One thing that comes up quite frequently is the stuff that every business takes for granted, in terms of if you were to leave the office at the end of the day, there's probably lots of switches that just stay on because you don't know if you can turn them off. So one business has labeled, literally gone round and thought, does this need to stay on, and given a color coding for every switch that can be turned off at the end of the day versus ones that actually are important to stay on because they deliver refrigeration. Another one that works in science has reduced their refrigeration from minus 85 degrees C, and they realized they could reduce that by even 10 degrees and save a lot of carbon emissions and not upset the scientific data that they're trying to generate. So I think that looking at the stuff that you maybe take for granted is it's an easy win, and actually it can be quite transformative. Focusing on areas that are the biggest, in terms of scope 1, it's heating, and it's going to be heating and energy and your transport. And getting everyone involved there's some of the kind of things that you can do to start with, talk to the senior management, but if you're leaving today not sure where to go next, we really would welcome you to sign up to the Climate Action Programme and access all the resources. There's a guide to getting started, there's a guide to calculating carbon footprint, there's information about Scope 3 emissions, and the rest. So please do come and look for some information that's been put together by my colleagues and experts across the city, as well as Actionnet Zero. It sounds like there's a lot of really useful resources there too.
Yeah, perfect. And as a reminder to everyone watching, this recording will go on our YouTube after we finish. I'll also be writing an article following as well, and I'll include links to everything everyone's been mentioning. Maria, to you next, please. Short-term versus long-term action plans.
Quick wins are really important. They motivate people, and you can see something meaningful very, very quickly. So whether that's, and Lizzie sort of alluded to it, getting a group of people together to drive forward an initiative. And I think sometimes the best quick wins come from our own people. We don't have all the answers. And I think, hearing from people who might want to make a contribution, might want to make a difference, that's really important. So quick wins can be quite sort of game changing. Then in the longer term, we all recognise that decarbonisation won't happen overnight. So it's having that sort of focused that focused strategy. Some of the slightly longer term aims, and I come at this also from a clean energy perspective. Clean energy generation can make such a difference to our sort of net zero aspirations. It is so exciting at the moment with the amount of sort of new solar going onto the grid. Pam touched on earlier a very, very congested grid that we've got in the UK. We are rolling out battery storage projects to help with that grid congestion, and then to release that electricity back into the grid when we really need it. We've talked about electric vehicle charging infrastructure. We don't have enough in the UK, and with the uptick in demand for electric vehicles, that's only going to work properly if you've then got the infrastructure to support it. And then some fantastic things coming on downstream as well in relation to hydrogen and other emerging technologies. So I put that in the longer term piece. That's not going to be relevant for everybody, but if you can consider, our building is in 1 Rickler Street. That's where we're headquartered in Bristol. We've got battery storage, we've got solar on the roof, and we've got some EV charging infrastructure. And I'd love to get some more EV charging infrastructure there as well. It's about just how you can plan that into your own sort of buildings. And then just from a wider real estate perspective, lots of talk at the moment. We do want people in our offices some of the time. But if you've got the flexibility of space and multiple floors, for example, maybe on those days, and it's Monday and Fridays at the minute, isn't it, where there's less people in, do you need to occupy every floor? Or could that flexible working model, picking up the points just now, mean that you bring people onto a particular floor and then you don't have the lights on, you don't need the same level of heating? So I think there's so much that can be done to sort of target it in the longer term as well.
Perfect, thank you. And Pam, coming to you next, what do you think?
So short term, I think we've talked about it. I think for me, it's about bringing the conversation whether it's from a family perspective or actually from a business perspective, is reaching out and having those conversations and knowing that there's a lot of support about. I mean, you can hear from today how much support there is to be able to be able to get people excited. And we've talked about embracing change. So for me, a short term thing would be identifying, we've touched on this, but identifying individuals within the organisation that are really passionate, and trying, it doesn't matter where you sit in the organisation, but actually asking some quite big and bold questions about saying, can we have a green team, or can we, obviously from a corporate or senior level, can we actually start to embed this? So I think that there is this thing about empowering everyone to have a voice. So I think a short-term thing is, don't be afraid of your own voice wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And even if it's just talking to people about, opportunities when you meet them out socially, is just really starting to drive that from a short-term perspective. We've talked a lot about the great things things that organisations can do as well. So as we said, committing, saying, actually, do you know what, we need to measure our carbon footprint. Let's find out about how we can do that. And there's lots of different ways you can do it, and there's lots of different methods. And again, making sure that that's right for you on your journey. So those two key things: talking about it, committing to it, and then on the longer term, we've talked about this. I think we see how turbulent the energy market is. Actually, there's some lovely things. We have an influencer program at Actionnet Zero, and we're fortunate enough to have people like Graham Cooper, who's head of renewables at National Grid, who sits on that influencer program, and he talks a lovely narrative, which is saying, to empower people to democratize energy. Now, if every business owner in the region actually started to think about energy and investment in energy, as per the reasons Maria has said, storage batteries, solar power, taking advantage a lot of the time potentially of some grants, there's really quite innovative ways of funding things, but to start thinking, we are going to start to take ownership of our own energy supply, because the biggest challenge that we all have is to be able to decarbonize the grid, get rid of the fossil fuels. And a latest stat we heard across the southwest is 90% is fossil fuel, energy is actually from fossil fuels. So that straight away shows that there's a huge opportunity, a massive opportunity. So I think that longer term thing is trying to collectively provide the opportunities and the inspiration for people to kind of take control of some of those costs that at the moment are totally out of control, as we can see with the turbulence in the market. And that, as we've talked about, has to benefit everybody and make your company more resilient and future fit.
Yeah, thank you. And Sarah, finishing off with you on that question, please.
Yeah, so this is something that we at YTKO deal with on a daily basis. So helping either pre-start or brand new businesses down to larger SMEs, how they can implement all of this and how they get started. So I completely agree with Pam in that a conversation is a fantastic way to start in the short term. So, if you're a one person company, it's just you, like thinking about perhaps your own values and how your sustainability values will align with your business as well, and what this means, and making sure that it's authentic and the message is authentic to your potential customers or your current client base. And then these are the small incremental changes that I spoke about earlier. So looking at the smaller things of what you can do to make a big impact now. So whether that is, just assessing your supply chain and making sure that you're working with ethical suppliers that you believe in, and then looking at down the line what you can then do. So whether that's looking at your recruitment as well and making sure that it reflects good equality, and then down to other things like, when you're starting to go to an office, looking at the type of office that you're going to be renting. If you have a fleet as well, so looking at electric vehicles, and with the clean air zone that's about to come in for this year, there's so many grants around this to support, upgrading vehicles that would comply with the clean air zone. So there's lots of things that people can do, but I think the main message that I would say here to smaller companies or people just starting out is that all of this is completely accessible to you, and there is so much information out there, and support from myself, from a fellow panelist here, that can get you started. So don't be put off by this. It, initially may seem expensive, a lot of time and resource here, but we can help. Help is out there, and we can get you from those smaller actions or your thoughts down to some real big actions that are going to make a big impact further on down the line in your business.
Amazing. Now, it's great that we have 4 panelists from organizations who are, so keen to adopt sustainable practices, and, that's what you all do. But I wanted to, give a thought to maybe some people who are watching who might work for employers who are a bit more hesitant to take on new green practices. So, I don't need to ask everyone this, but I'll maybe pick someone out. But what advice would you give to those who do want to make a positive change, but might have to face some layers of bureaucracy to kind of make any difference? I don't know if anyone wants to answer that, or I can pick someone.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think back to that voice piece, actually, there's some really solid business cases which any one of the panelists today would be able to support with, not suggest, but in terms of there are solid ways that you can actually shine a light on the benefits of sustainability to any organisation. So I think it's knowing that actually it's a conversation that needs to happen, but there's lots, as we said, there's lots of support out there. So if there at the moment if sustainability isn't high on the agenda. I think it's to flag that and actually to then work with your colleagues to say, how might we be able to adopt some more sustainable behaviours and actually signpost, start to ask them, because I think by virtue they will listen. They know how important the agenda is. We think of COP and we obviously think of regulation change, and as we said, there's a lot of support out there. So it does go back to that voice piece, and I'm repeating myself, but I think it's a critical thing. Don't be afraid of asking. It's really important, wherever you are in the organisation, to actually, kind of almost demand, what are we doing, and if you're not doing anything, why aren't we doing it?
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, I'd like to just say that organisations and businesses are the people that make them up, and often people working within a business have the most powerful voice and influence over what the business can do. It may feel like it takes a while. You may have to repeat yourself. You may have to work with others to see whether there's any kind of open ears if it doesn't feel like it's being adopted. But I would really encourage anyone that's feeling that way to keep going and not lose the faith, because the environmental movement itself has seen a lot of changes. Like if we were having the same conversation 10 years ago, there's a lot more closed doors. The world has changed. This is a mainstream issue. Businesses should be getting into the place, and maybe your voice or the thing that you say at work is going to be the trigger that kind of changes action. So I would say, don't forget that you have a lot of power and you are what makes your business great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are going to have to start wrapping up soon, but I have had a question, and also a reminder, if anyone does want to ask a question, please do send that in now so we can get it covered before we end the call. But we've had a question from Amy Hunter, who asks, what would you recommend being the first step for an SME to take in order to become more sustainable? So first ever step, what would we recommend? Sarah, let's go to you.
Yeah, brilliant question. So I would look at your strategy. So look at this as like a whole strategic approach, rather than just saying, right, step one, I am going to only use energy efficient light bulbs, for example, which is fantastic, but look at it in this holistic approach of what you're going to do, and then put it in iterations of what is achievable. So start from 12-month program, but break that down to 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, assess what you're doing along the way and look at how you can grow and develop. And one of the first steps is, again, use the free support that's on offer from all of us to build this strategy to get you started, and then look at those small short-term ideas that all of us have just given, and then how you can progress that within your strategy onto long-term. So again, just use all of the free resources that are available, make the most of them, and shout about what you're doing as well. Really just make sure that you're communicating this with your clients, with your staff, with all of your audiences.
Perfect, thank you. Maria, do you have anything to add to that before we move on, maybe?
I think Sarah has articulated that absolutely brilliantly, and I think it is just around that focused approach. Embed that in your strategy. It's the communication. Reach out. There are plenty of organisations out there who would love to sort of share their own experiences, and I think a lot of this is about sharing best practice. Let's continue that communication, because that's what makes it quite exciting. And you don't need to start from scratch. There's lots of really, really good stuff going on. So tap into that and use it for your own organisation's benefit.
Thank you. I've got just one last question, so I might go around for everyone as well. It might actually be ending on a bit of a negative point, so sorry about that. But I did want to just approach the issue of greenwashing. So, lots of large businesses do really preach climate practices, but behind the scenes, they are big polluters, or they might be investing in fossil fuels. And I just wanted to ask how, maybe either as consumers or as businesses, can you ensure that you or a business that you're working with is prioritizing the planet? I don't know who wants to go first, maybe Pam.
Yeah, interestingly, we just contributed to a journalistic piece actually that went across Bristol through a local journalist through the Bristol Post around greenwashing, because for us it is such an important topic to discuss. And the reason is that we know from research many people are making decisions based on marketing, and it's green marketing, and we know that. And sustainability is hugely complex. So it's a trap that everyone falls into, and it really needs to be surfaced and addressed. So in terms of those greenwashing, there's many ways and guises of greenwashing, but ultimately we know authentic organisations that are not peddling greenwash will be very clear about and transparent about where they are on their sustainability journey. And so it's the classics like 100% organic or 100% recycled or no use of single plastics, and those might be true statements in isolation to one product, for instance, but they are not representative perhaps of that organisation that sits behind that claim. And those are the things that are so damaging, because we know that they're messages that people then think, oh, that is great, I'm buying from a green organisation. And we see it day in, day out, where organisations, whether it's around energy, which is people saying they're renewable energy, there's renewable energy, there's clean energy, there's complexity around it, but the point is not all energy is the same. So we would always suggest greenwashing. It's about actually approaching messages knowing that not everything is exactly what it says it is on the tin, and where possible, we appreciate it's time poor, where possible actually doing a little bit of research. If we take the energy piece as an example, energy companies have to disclose where their energy is created, and that's through an energy mix. It is easy to get that information online, and so it might be that it's made up of a bit of coal, a bit of gas, and a little bit of renewable as an example, but then you can make an informed decision about whether you want to go with that organisation, as opposed to thinking that it is giving you 100% renewable energy, which is obviously very different when that's focusing on wind and solar, etc. So I think for me the big call out is, don't assume everything is what it says it is. Know that marketing is at play. If it's really critical purchase or decision, actually, if you just do a little bit of research, and normally you'll get a gut reaction. And I think my biggest advice would be listen to the gut reaction, because if the gut reaction is this feels a bit fake, then probably don't necessarily go down that route.
Yeah, thank you. Lizzie, do you have anything to add to that answer?
Yeah, I'll say it is greenwashing is a live risk, but it's reduced with the speed at which our city and the citizens within it are becoming very climate literate. And there's other initiatives such as the Task Force on Climate Related Financial Disclosures. The more legislation that comes that means there has to be robust reporting in place, I think is a welcome thing, because it encourages transparency. But as Pam mentioned, good companies will be doing the transparency anyway. Greenwashing is a risk, but it's a very short-sighted strategy, because people will very quickly see through it, and then it will present more harm than it has brought benefits for the business. So one of the things that we work with the climate leaders is about that accountability and reporting to one another about how they're doing, because we know that this is a challenging area. It's not going to be the same for every business. They're not going to be able to transition at the same speed because of the different nature of things that they're involved with. So yeah, look for transparency, ask and demand transparency, and to businesses that are tempted in that way, it's short-sighted, so don't do it.
Don't do it. Sarah, any more thoughts on that?
Yes, completely agreeing with what Pam and Lizzie have already said here. Transparency is absolute key. And when we have our clients come in asking us about how they implement their sustainable strategy, the key thing that we say to them is be careful of what kind of information you put out there. Make sure it's completely authentic and it's real, it's what you believe in, and then that will drive your marketing campaign for you. But obviously consumers will very quickly find out if this isn't real, and the effects on your business are absolutely detrimental. So just consider everything. Don't do any, don't be tempted to do any short-term greenwashing strategies. It just won't work.
Perfect. Anne-Marie, final thought from you, please.
Final thought, and let's turn this into a positive. It's great that this has been called out. I think it's really important. It's all over, the news at the minute, and absolutely right, it should be called out. I think we all get very, very frustrated around the amount of noise sometimes in the sort of sustainability sort of world. It's not about that. It's about meaningful action. So the way in which you can absolutely counter the greenwashing is take some action. Just do something, but action in sustainability space is absolutely the way forward, rather than just talking about it.
Thank you. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. So I want to say thank you so much for everyone. A huge thank you to all of our panelists. It was really insightful. Thank you to everyone who was watching. And again, I will upload the video onto our website along with an article with any links so you can find out more about all of these organisations and panelists that we have here today. So do keep an eye out for future Bristol 24/7 Presents events. This is our 5th and we do have more coming. Our next event will take place in March and we'll look at women in the nightlife industry. So do keep an eye out on our Eventbrite page for more information and to sign up. Thank you very much once again. Happy Thursday and see you next time.
Thank you.